So today, I want to introduce a few concepts around practice, but I'll talk to you a little bit at the beginning first, if that's okay, just to explain some concepts about Gong really, because there's two components to all of this, isn't there? There's the practice side of it. There's the method, which of course everybody needs to have if you're engaged in a practice. But you know, after all these years, I think it's safe to say that you can get people that have the method, and they can have the best method in the world, and they still don't get it. Something still doesn't happen, you know. And I think that I want with newer people, when I start to teach them, is just give at least my opinion. That's all I can ever give. My opinion, my experience about what it is that makes the method work. How to take the tools that you're taught and get them to do what you need them to do for the practice. Yeah, because you'll get sick of me saying this with foundation level practice. You'll get sick of me saying this, but the practice you do is the cause to lead to an effect, but there's something in the middle that makes the cause lead to an effect, and that's the conditions. And that's what I want to understand a little bit. What is the condition that is going to make the cause lead to the effect, right? The condition is you, as much as anything, and also how you use your mind, really, how it is used. And you'll find that you can kind of divide, if we stick with Taoism, I'm not Taoist, by the way, just to make that clear at the beginning. But if we stick with Taoism at the beginning, I think that it's easy to divide Taoist writings or teachings up into three sections. First of all, religious, ritualistic, ceremonies and things like this. That is not within my remit. I don't understand all that. That's not where I'm trained. That's not my forte. I don't know much about that. So I can't help you with those kind of things. Not enough time to study those. Second would be teachings on alchemy or understanding energetics, right? Essentially. So a lot of the alchemical writings are about this. How to understand the nature of Qi, and how to understand the nature of Jing, and what is your Shen, and what are the channels, and those kind of things, right? So we have a kind of practical side of the writings as well. But then the third set, which is not always integrated so effectively, is like the quality of you, if you like, or your mind, or the conditions that you apply to those practices. And the problem, I think, sometimes with, especially Taoism, is people will subdivide it into one of the two. It's either the Qigong path, you know, like we do energetics, or it's the philosophy, what would you call it, mind path, quality path, and they don't necessarily understand that sometimes those, in my opinion, have to come together in order to create the practice, right, to create the results. So in a long-winded way, I want to explain a little bit about what the point of all this is, essentially with regards to Taoism as far as I see it. Yeah. But first, a little disclaimer. Like I said, I'm not Taoist. Not really. I don't identify as Taoist. I'm not Taoist. In fact, the traditions that I'm involved in, I'm actually very involved in a Buddhist line and also very involved in a Hindu line as well. I don't have any particular connection to Taoism. I don't feel a connection to Taoism any more than I feel a connection to Hinduism or Buddhism particularly. They are just things. They are just traditions. They are just languages and tools for doing something, but I've never had like an exotic pull towards it. Do you know what I mean? Like some people just have this like, wow, I want to be a Taoist. Like I've never had that. Not at all. Not really. I mean, I'd rather be a cowboy, if I'm totally honest, but it turns out I'm too small and British, so I couldn't get away with it. But so for me, as much as anything, they're very practical. It's just pragmatic. Like, okay, this tradition explains this thing and it does this, and it happens to use these words. So that's it. That's why I get drawn into that line. I'm just a very practical person. Like, what is going to do this particular thing? So Taoism for me is the easiest language. I don't mean that, you know what I mean? Easiest set of words, if you like, or concepts to explain these. I think Taoism is very easy to explain certain concepts. And then I think other traditions, Hinduism, Taoism, Buddhism are good for, they have their own concepts, good at explaining other aspects of the training for me. But certainly I think foundations and understanding the nature of training in general, Taoism nailed it. Like I think they're pretty good at that. So I will stick with Taoist terminology while I'm explaining these ideas to you, yeah? So we have to understand first, I don't need to write on the board, it's okay. You can just remember. So we have to understand first, what is Taoism? And I know that's like a really obvious thing to start with. It might sound overly simplistic, but there's all kinds of funny ideas, in my opinion, about what Taoism is, and certainly what Tao is, okay? That's what we need to understand first, right? Because anybody who's read anything about Taoism knows that whether you're using the energetic path, or the philosophical path, or the religious path, or the martial path, whatever it is, ultimately you're trying to unify with this thing called Tao, right? That's the idea, that's the concept. But still, we don't define it. And don't they say in the classics we can't define it? Not true. We can define it, and we will. Because if you don't have a definition of what you are trying to do, what you are trying to aim for, then you kind of sort of wandering in the dark, really. It becomes kind of tricky, and then people will overlay their own different views about what Taoism is onto something. Now, of course, if I do this, every teacher will have a different opinion on what Tao is, of course, but I can only give you mine, essentially, and that people who train regularly with me, I suppose, or consistently with me, that's what I'm trying to lead them towards as much as anything, okay? So, maybe we'll put some in here. First of all, with regards to Tao, we need to understand that it's the obvious first. Oh, these pens are weird. Not a thing. I'll have to turn the pen that way to write. It's not a thing, right? It's not an entity. It's also not an end goal. This is something we must understand first. And I was talking to some students recently, not too long ago, about it, and trying to see that actually Taoism, or Tao, is actually the most simplistic thing within the Eastern arts, the spiritual arts. If we were to put the hierarchy of things, what do we call it? God, Nirvana, or whatever, or Shambhala, well, it doesn't matter, all the different traditions, you can put all these different terms or whatever, even jhanic states and whatever. Tao is the lowest out of all of them. It is the most basic, okay? It is has the least prestige, if you like, out of all of the different things that can be achieved within the different traditions, yeah? And sometimes when I say people don't like that because they want Taoism to be really high, it's not, it's very, very low. Tao Te Ching is very clear on this. It says Taoism seeks the low places, okay? And people have sometimes thought to think, oh, maybe this means the lower abdomen, maybe this means mental stillness. No, they're just saying it's really basic. It's really low. That's it. Because Tao, first of all, it is not the same as God. This is something that you see quite often. They say, oh, Tao and God are the same. Tao and Nirvana are the same or something. It's not. It's not the same. It's a different thing. In fact, in Taoism, they do talk about those concepts, but they use different words, different ideas, different terms, different concepts. Tao is something far more simplistic, because Tao is essentially, Tao is the method. You can't read that, forget that. Tao is the method. That's essentially what Tao is. It is the method and an understanding of how to make the method work. That's essentially what they're discussing. It's kind of indicated that that's the case within the character for Tao, which shows somebody walking across a path, right, or down a road, or following a journey through something. And even within sort of colloquial conversational Chinese, Tao means a path or a road or something like this, a journey. They're talking about the process itself. That is what Taoism is. So if we define Taoism, not the religious side, I don't know much about that, yeah, but the other side of the tradition, Taoism is the study of the process, nothing more. That's it. It is the study of the process for how to make or take a practitioner into this path that we call Tao. That which is at the other end of the path is not actually defined by the tradition. Not really defined by it. But we do have some descriptions for what that method or that path may be, or what it may lead to. Because there's some other concepts with Tao, is that it is, it is the underlying order. The underlying order of things. So, essentially the view in Taoism, I I think within Eastern traditions in general, is that the way that things manifest, the way that things happen, the way that things unfold is according to some kind of underlying order that is there. That order is not necessarily, spoken by a deity or have any great meaning or anything like this. Maybe it does have meaning, maybe it doesn't have meaning. It's irrelevant. It's not even discussed. Like that's not considered something that's important. There is just an underlying order to the way that things happen. That's the idea. So it can happen all the way from the way nature unfolds, or the way things grow, or the way that events unfold, or the way that life is, or whatever. But Taoism is very specific on this. It doesn't talk about destiny. You know what I mean? There's no great, it's going to lead to the age of Aquarius, and we all start singing that song from the 60s or whatever. It's not, there's no great thing. It's just unraveling. It's just unfolding. So, if something is happening this way, this underlying order, if you want, the way things are unfolding, this natural unfolding, this thing we call ziran, just the way that things are opening up, then there must also be that natural order in human beings as well. That was the view. Like if it's there in nature, it's there in human beings too. There is a natural unfolding. Essentially, we might call this the aging process, would be the physical aspect of it, sort of Ming or part of your health. And then also there's the mental process, maturing, that should happen, right? And then kind of conscious evolution in a direction or whatever. You are going to change, right? Constantly from day to day to day and develop as you grow older. And there is a kind of order to that. But the view is that human beings have an order and nature has an order, but unfortunately they're not in line with one another. There is a separation between the two. It's like there is supposed to be an order, a Tao, a path, that nature and the world and life can follow. And then there is human beings, and they're off over there somewhere, deviating off, doing this, don't know what they're doing. Living their life like a vacation, I think is what they say in the classics, essentially, gone off on the other path. So consequently, what it means is that somebody is out of sync with the natural order of things. You understand that? Essentially, that's the basis of Taoism, right? Like Tao is the path that leads you towards Ziran. That's the concept, right? And then very clearly, they say within the tradition that first of all, we regulate earth. Okay, I'm paraphrasing. You know what I mean? First of all, we regulate earth, which they mean the body. They mean the form, that which has matter, that which is solid, that which is tangible and touchable and boring. Okay. Then after this, we must regulate heaven or consciousness, the mind. Okay, that must come after. And then beyond this, we can unify with Ziran, the natural order of things, which is an effective walk along the path through the process. That's the basis of Taoism. Can you see that? Easy, yeah? Not so hard. So, this is why I say Taoism is low. You know what I mean? It's low. It's not high. Not really. Because it's simply the first thing a human being has to do, is we just have to order ourselves alongside the path. Then beyond this, once there is unification with Tao, the process, bringing human beings in line with the natural order of things, okay, maybe then there's something else. Maybe then there's a discussion of something higher. Maybe there is something that maybe all the words you use, people won't like strive for, I know that's horrible, aim for, or whatever, do you know what I mean? But there's somewhere that process can lead us afterwards. Now this becomes important because it becomes the basis of, it becomes the basis of a few things. One, success or failure. Okay, I know these are horribly judgmental, qualitative words, but you will have to excuse me. Words are inadequate, but you can cut me some slack on this, you know what I mean? But success or failure at a method, if we were to quantify it like so, right? Then, if we cannot apply the natural order of the practice, which is very easy, don't worry, I'll show you how, over 2 days, no problem. If you cannot apply the natural order, okay, if you cannot find Tao, then the method will not work. That is the view, essentially, from Taoism. Or maybe it'll work less efficiently. You know what I mean? Like degrees of efficiency, how good you can unify with the path. It's not on or off, there's a sliding scale, yeah. So then, secondly, sometimes to make it scary, evolve in the correct direction or the wrong, or the correct, incorrect or correct, you know what I mean? Like the two different ways someone can go. So somebody can involve themselves very much in spiritual practice, whatever you want to call it, internal practice, and sometimes they're so far from unification with Tao that it leads them in an odd direction. And sometimes that can lead to things like health problems, perhaps not so common, but also sometimes it can just lead to dissatisfaction, you know what I mean? Like emotional unhappiness or something, you know, like your life can veer in another direction. And often it's because there's not a unification with Tao. If we understand this, we can see that sometimes people can practice Taoist arts without ever practicing Taoist arts. You know what I mean? They have the method. I know how to circulate the water wheel. I know how to build the dantian. I know how to unify the 5 elements. But I never found the path. You know what I mean? I never found Tao. The two never unified. So therefore, I had the external apparatus, and maybe the method was really good. Maybe I did find the secret level 72 Mopai technique and found all that and whatever, or found the true lineage, but still never really got much from it because I didn't really find Tao. I didn't find that path. And that's really where the start point is for me in understanding it. Okay so far? Understand, yeah. But again, just my opinion, you know? And that's all I can share. So, if we want to understand what is that the way to unify with Tao, okay, we need to understand that really what it comes down to are the, I held the pen the right way around this time, I can write with it. The conditions. What are the conditions that enables a person to do this? So that they have the cause, the method. That is the doing. Okay? And then they apply the conditions themselves to that practice, and that leads to whatever the effect of the practice might be. Of course, every practice has a different name. Okay. If we understand the conditions, then those things can be practiced all of the time, constantly. So people say, you need to integrate your practice with life, right? And okay, I get that, but I can't be doing this all the time. It's going to make people look at me strangely in public, and you're going to get tired if you keep circulating qi or something. Or you can't keep doing it, yeah? So we can't practice the method all of the time, not really. We can't practice the cause. What we have to practice all the time are the conditions. That's essentially what we're trying to do, because the conditions are largely just you. Okay, that is what you are trying to adjust, trying to change. So maybe some words that people will associate with Taoism. Okay, I won't write them, no need. You can't read anyway, handwriting's too bad. So first of these, this idea of Wu Wei. Most people have heard of this, like non-doing. Scrap that translation, not non-doing. Non-governing is better with regards to how it is applied to practice. To none control, none to assert, none govern, none manipulate. You know, these kind of ideas. This is what we're trying to apply essentially to the practice. This is how Wu Wei would be defined with regards to your personal conditions as much as anything. Okay, Wu Wei. To none govern, none contrive, if you like. Then a second one, De. Some people translate as virtues, ethics, something like this. Perhaps. We'll come back to that one. That one's a little bit more complex. Then yin and yang. We'll come back to that too. Let's start with Wu Wei. So, the view is that when you, I'm sure you know all this. I'm sure this is familiar to you. That essentially human beings will accumulate experience seconds to second to second to second. Right now you're accumulating. You're accumulating more information from me. Maybe it's information you agree with, maybe it's information you don't agree with. It doesn't matter. It's still accumulating within you. There it is. More information, accumulate more crap, filling up the brain. This time it's me giving you the crap as opposed to somebody else, but more clutter. So this happens all the time via your experiences in life. And if you're not experiencing anything, When does that happen? Asleep or meditation generally. Then you get your mind instead. So you get dreams or imagination or whatever. There's always something going on inside the body, inside the brain, inside the mind, producing all these things. And all of the time that we react to it and we acknowledge it, which you can't help, let's not pretend it's possible to not do that, then what happens is those layers form upon you. They form upon you, to create your personality. Certainly with regards to spiritual practice, we would say that human beings are largely nurture rather than nature. It doesn't mean you don't start with some nature, of course. We can see that. Yeah, there is a little bit of nature there. Of course there is. I mean, Taoism has things like Ba Zi and stuff. This would be an aspect of, is that nature or is that nurture? Because we nurture by the stars, who knows? But you know what I mean? There's an innate part of you that's there when you're first born, but then of course there's a lot of accumulated stuff that comes afterwards, tons of it. And you have everything from how you feel, how you think, the things that have happened to you, the place you're born, your age, your gender, your nationality, all these things, like just all part of you, you know. And if we were to write down this fella, let's write him down, and we talk to him for several days, and then we just write down everything we learned from him, everything about this guy. That would be all the accumulated knowledge, you know what I mean? That's what makes this person's personality or whatever. And if you wrote down everything about someone, it would be very long. You know, very, very long. Everything from major to trivial, all that information. Yeah. Now the problem is that all of that information is the stuff that has prevented people from finding Tao. That is the thing that is in the way. Okay, that is the thing that has deviated you from the path, because you are not simple, is the idea. Human beings are complicated. We are all complicated. We are all complex. There's not many people you meet that I would say are simple. Okay, not too many. Yeah, most people are very complex. They've accumulated lots of things. So this would mean that essentially any method you practice, or any method I practice, I'm not taking myself out of that, anything we practice, we are applying those conditions to what we are doing all the time. Yeah. So this is Boris. So when I give this is Helen. So when I give Helen a method, and I give Boris a method, and they have the same method, Helen does it perfectly, Boris does it perfectly, they're not doing the same method. Because Boris is not Helen. So what is happening is a different set of conditions is applied to what you're doing, yeah? Different set of conditions is being applied. Their personality, their body type, their energetics are being applied to that method that they are doing. And Boris is going to deviate from the path one way, and Helen is going to deviate from the path the other way. Do you understand that? Now, the reason this is going to happen, particularly with internal arts, internal practice to a very clear and strong level, is because you are interfacing your mind with your body, and you are interfacing your mind with your energetics, right? You are looking inside. That is what you are doing. You are putting your mind on the inside. So consequently, everything I practiced for many, many years was Damo's fuck up. That was it. Today I will do Damo's fucked up Qigong 1, Damo's fucked up Qigong 2, Damo's fucked up Qigong 3. That was essentially what I was doing. And then the more I tried, and the more I asserted, and and then I just went further and further and further down that route, and ultimately prevented you from finding Tao, because your personal conditions are the opposite of the natural underlying order of things. Can you see that? Yeah. Now that's not to demonize the personality. That's what makes you interesting. Okay, we need that. But it is not helpful for practice. It is not useful for practice. So, this is what Wu Wei is. Wu Wei is the learning to not apply your conditions and your personality to your practice, so that Boris and Helen can both practice the same thing, the same method. Is it ever going to be pure? No. There will always be a little bit of variation, of course. Yeah. But how well we apply the mindset will control, sort of percentage, how far on that sliding scale we can get towards unification with Tao, with the path, right? Because once we can unify with that, then hopefully the underlying natural order should mean that the cause unfolds as it's supposed to create the effects. That's the practice, yeah? Does that all make sense? Okay. Does it just sound obvious? Maybe yeah, maybe obvious. Maybe not. Some and some nod, some shake. This is something that must be kept in mind, because obviously I don't want to be that guy that stands up here and picks holes in practices. That's not very nice. It's not professional. It's just too typical of the internal arts world. But for this, I have to pick one hole, not in a person or a tradition or whatever, but just to me one key error, that I was fell foul of for a long time, and it got in the way. Is that you always have to have the practice, which is going to be what your body's doing, what your breath is doing, what your mind is doing, whatever. And I'll shut up in a minute. We'll do some methods, yeah? So you have the method. But then you always have to have the mind applied in some way. It has to mix with that method, right? The mind has to be there. You don't want to absent-mindedly practice. You don't want to be daydreaming. You have to be involved in what you're doing. So there's always going to be an integration of the two, yeah? So people understood this, I think, and then sometimes, in my opinion, they made the small error of thinking that the mind had to lead, that the mind had to be in charge, or the mind had to guide, or the mind had to govern a little bit. And I think that's, to me, not quite right. The mind should always be passive and attentive to what you are doing. That is what it does. So the mind does not create anything. The mind does not do anything. The mind does not imagine anything. It does not visualize anything. The mind is actually very dull, because the mind is supposed to be Wu Wei, non-governing, right? Within bodily arts in Qigong or Tai Chi or whatever, all the different things that internal arts that got incorporated into Taoism, the word listening came up. Okay? Listening was the term that is used. Not governing, not doing. That's Wei. We're after Wu Wei and just listening. Because the idea was that listening was the passive application of the awareness, but it's attentive, right? If you're listening, it's attentive too, but passive onto the method that you are doing, onto the practice. That was the idea. Do you understand that? When it is applied to whatever the method is, whether it be the body, whether it be the breath, whatever, then what will happen is hopefully less of you, less of your conditioning if you want, should be carried across into the practice. So that then there should be a natural unfolding of trust. Not trust in God, not trust in the teacher, not trust in the method either, just trust in the natural underlying order of all things that should just unfold. Do you understand that? Now the funny thing is, after these years of teaching, I'll talk for like 10 minutes more, not too much more. I know you want to move. After all these years of teaching, when I watch people practice, if people struggle, it's normally that they just applying too many conditions. That's essentially all it is. Too many conditions, too much going on. Yeah? If people can apply attentiveness, attention, just listening, the process unfolds very, very quickly. It's very, very fast. But of course, that's quite difficult. We have to learn how to take the conditions out of the way, right? You understand all that? So what it means, why I say Tao is low, and people don't like, and I mean low as in, it's crummy, you know what I mean? It's like bottom of the barrel for spirituality, if you like, or something like that. Is because there are no high-minded spiritual qualities needed to find Tao, right? Not really. Do you need high-minded spiritual qualities or mental qualities for jhana? I think you do, actually. I think you do. I think you need some very refined mental qualities for states like that. But those are all still conditions that are applied. Actually, but they are the correct conditions, yeah? We talk about skillful conditions, unskillful conditions, skillful mind, skillful, unskillful mind. For Wu Wei and Tao, we want no conditions, nothing applied, just passivity, essentially, so that the process unfolds. You understand? Yeah. So, last bit after this, otters. So if we are applying passivity, if you like, listening, attentive listening to what we are doing, if we're applying that to what we're doing, the problem is we might already not have the most efficient body or efficient energetics or efficient whatever breath. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? You might even stand right. You know what I mean? We might already have some kind of errors in the cause, or some sounds like a sort of Soviet march or something. Errors in the cause. We might have some errors in what we're doing, or maybe the causes aren't as efficient as they could possibly be, right? They might already be there because, I don't know, posture or whatever, health, diet, all these different things, right? So if we take that inefficient tool and then we apply Wu Wei to it, say we apply it perfectly, perfect condition of the mind onto an inefficient condition of the body, actually, we can still evolve in the wrong way. Oh, damn, another trap. Because what will happen is your attention will fuel whatever is there. That is the idea. It's like it just applies fuel to it. Oh, there we go, and off we go in that direction. So therefore, what they did within the traditions was they looked and they're like, okay, we need to sort this out, especially in sort of an Gong or something like this. We need to sort this problem out. So they looked at, what do people need? First of all, we need to make sure that the body is efficient. That was the first step. Not necessarily efficient for running or powerlifting or climbing or whatever it is you do, particularly efficient for these arts. Okay, we want the body to be built for these arts. So what I do is I do. Okay, I accumulate, I build, but we accumulate and we build in the right direction, because we accumulate and we build the body according to certain conditions. Yeah, so the body must be changed. I cannot just snatch someone off the street. Well, that would be illegal anyway, right? But I can't snatch them off the street, put them here, and then go, okay, apply your mind and do this exercise and the result will come. It will not. Well, maybe they're one of those fluke people that the body was conditioned in that way, but it's unlikely. Generally, the body is not built right. So we have to go through a process of reorganizing the body. It's like, oh, nope, not happy with that. Sacrum's rubbish, hips are rubbish, quads rubbish. Sort that out, reshape the body, boom, put it in place. Then we have to do a little bit with the energy, not much. Sometimes in Qigong and Neigong, people overemphasize Qi too much. Now that doesn't mean nothing is, I'm not saying that Qi is not real, please, I'm very, very woo-woo, definitely, very, very esoteric. But the weighting of what we're doing is not actually that much. You know, like the Qi will take care of itself once we do a few things with the Dantian. That's basically it, the Dantian. We've got to get that sorted, get the Dantian sorted. And then afterwards is the application of the passive and attentive mind onto that body and onto the Dantian and onto the breath. That produces the results. And then after that, you can almost forget the Qi. It will do what it needs to do. It will just unfold. Because hopefully what we do is we develop the body and the Dantian properly, breath as well, yeah, don't forget that. And then we apply Wu Wei of your mind onto those causes, and then you should unify with Tao, and then the process should unfold. Do you understand that? That's the idea. So all we ever do is set up the initial bits, and then leave the process to unfold of its own accord. That's essentially how Taoist practice should work. So there's not much to do with regards to your mind. I don't have to lead it here, or do this, or imagine this, or visualize it. Not really. I just set up the conditions, apply the mind, go through a bit of discomfort while the body changes, and then we allow the process to unfold, because we're trying to unify with the underlying order that should naturally be there. And then the more I apply listening, the faster and faster that process unfolds. You understand that? I think when I've taught kids, which we don't do, when I've taught kids, which we don't do because I saw what happened when you taught kids, it's too fast for them. But when I have broken that rule, and a couple of times taught kids, their bodies are naturally better. They are better organized, but still not perfect. Because I think that obviously there's conditions applied upon us before we're born as well. But I think the thing with the human body, part of its amazingness is that it will evolve for whatever you do, right? That's what it does. Your body is constantly changing to make you better at what you do. So if you live on pizzas, your body is going to be better at living on pizzas. It's going to accumulate a bigger stomach, more weight, better storage of this, that, and the other, or whatever, just to make it more efficient. So on that level, like, I don't ever see anyone's body as bad. I think their body is good for what they're doing with their life, just their life is bad. if you get what I mean. That's my view, right? So if you're a runner, you'll build a specific body for that thing. If you're a couch potato, you build a specific body for that thing. So it's just that obviously those conditions aren't quite the same as what we want for Qigong. So the body for Qigong, I don't even think it's natural. Like not really. I think it's still deviated from the norm a little. It's just deviated towards something that's efficient for Qigong, if you get what I mean. Like, let's be honest, like a runner's body is not natural. It's not how your body was as a child, is it? It builds, it develops in that way. A rock climber's body is not natural necessarily because it deviates in that direction. It's a funny use of the word natural, I know. But Qigong is the same. We need just a particular body for it.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, no problem. Any other questions?
How long it takes?
Oh, about 2.5 minutes. Yeah, we'll be all right. We'll have it done in time for tea in the toilet.
2 years, 10 years?
Which bit? Change the body?
To change the body.
About 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, I can't put a number right. For most people, about 3 years. Not perfect. Not perfect, but whoever does anything perfectly, But from what I've seen, about 3 years, regular practice, most people can convert their body over. Obviously, younger people can be a little bit faster because they're a bit more malleable, aren't they, in the body? But still, it doesn't deviate a great deal from that generally. 3 years, I think. 3 years is good for a foundation in anything, I think. But it doesn't mean you can't do the other bits as well. They can run alongside it. Yeah. Well, life's always chaos. So, there's always going to be, even if you were to make your life unfold as perfectly as you can, unfortunately there's other people involved, generally, isn't there? There's other people's lives crossing over, so you're never going to totally sort the damn thing. I think, like, to answer your question in a roundabout way, if that's okay. Roundabout way, but I'll come back to your question, is that I think that most people will come to these arts for different reasons, whether it's health or maybe they're martial artists or maybe they want enlightenment or something, I don't know. Everyone has their own goal. And I don't think any goal is better than another. Like, it's okay, whatever people want. So I don't tend to, because I know everyone's goal is slightly different, I don't tend to focus on those things particularly, not really. I think that's okay. Whatever people want to do with it is grand. And on an individual level, when I know them a bit better, maybe I can help them steer things in that direction. So at the beginning, what I just do, and this is where we'll come back to what you're asking, is I just try to get people to understand, according to these principles, how to make the body and the mind and the energetics focus as efficiently as possible. That's it, for whatever you might want to use it for. So even if you don't want to use it for anything deep, can't think of a shallow reason. If I give a shallow reason, it'll be someone's reason and someone will be offended. So just insert shallow reason there. Obviously, the advantages of your body and your energy and your breath functioning as efficiently as possible is what's going to have a knock-on effect to whatever you do. So if you're a sportsman, generally that you will function better at that particular thing. If you're a, corporate, you don't look like a corporate CEO banker, but to say you are such a thing, then certainly your mind is going to function a lot better for those particular things. So I don't know if that answers your question, but simplistic for me, I just want everything to function as efficiently as possible as I possibly can for somebody on lots of different levels, physical, energetic, mental, and then whatever benefits arise out of that are a byproduct, in my opinion. Is that okay? Does that answer your question, right? Yeah. So, how is your life going to be if you're functioning really inefficiently on lots of levels compared to functioning really efficiently on lots of levels? That would, to me, would be the difference between the two. It can then go deeper, of course, but it depends on a person's path, and depends what you want out of life. Do you want a complicated answer? Sometimes some people's lives can fall apart completely from these practices. Won't lie. Mine did twice. Things come in threes, so I'm looking forward to the third. Yeah, because sometimes your life is built around inefficiencies, maybe we should say, and you build a network and things like that. And sometimes when that shift comes, you move into the natural order. Of course, it can be difficult sometimes. So sometimes, I think that's safe to say with any spiritual practice, probably, or any internal practice, sometimes it can create a hiccup. But once past the hiccup, actually, yeah, things can be more efficient, I think. Does that answer it okay?